are here. But this has been really indeed a time of reflection, reassurance, and rest. And, you know, reflecting on our lives, our country, and the world, and how really small the world is, especially when you're sharing a crisis. Reassurance that your faith and family is indeed the very most important things in our lives. And then rest. You know, sometimes I truly believe that things happen for a reason, and God has a plan, and he intended for some of us to get some rest. And so I think for me, the first 2 weeks were extremely challenging, because most importantly, it detached us from our student athletes. And in our work lives, for our coaches and staff, that is very challenging, not to be able to see them day to day, have them stop by the office. And so the first 2 weeks were really, really challenging. But then it went to a gap where you had to fill all this time that you thought you had. And so everybody's best friend is Netflix and Spectrum TV, learning more about the outdoors. Luckily, I love the outdoors. And so exercise for me and walking, because that was our only choice with the stay-at-home ordinances. You know, developing new hobbies, revisiting old hobbies. I just finished crocheting a scarf for Gino. And so it was just a really different time and normalizing this new space. So this evening, I do want to go over some of the things that I know that you have questions about. And again, thank you for being here. So I want to provide you some information on our student athletes, the return to campus for our staff and student athletes plan, fall sports updates, and particularly football season, and then just some general athlete updates from athletics. And so for our student athletes, well, where are they? So about 7 to 10 actually remained here. Some were international students, some had jobs. And so the university went through a process of allowing certain students exceptions to stay on campus. So we had about 7 to 10, but the rest of them went home. And as you can imagine, that is some very challenging, not just for the student athletes, but for the families. So for those of you who have college age students and know when they come home for break, you get to send them back. Well, just imagine, right, your college student there has now been there for 3 months. And so many of them are trying to balance working and completing semester. Now they're in summer school online, and just really dealing with their breaking their routine, because you know, NCCU is such a huge part of their lives. So there's a lot of emotions that our student athletes have gone through, but we're here to help them. We have a counselor that, thank you to Student Affairs, was able to appoint to work with our student athlete, Mr. William Hitt. So he has kept all of our coaches and me updated with regards to, you know, just how they're doing mentally, because this is really, really a strain. A lot of our student athletes are at home and they're working, and to help support their families, as well as trying to work out, as well as trying to get their studies done. And so we sometimes don't realize the stresses or stressors that they have on them, because we're thinking, well, you're young, you can handle it. But it's truly, truly a lot of emotions and mental stress right now. But a positive is that they've had a physical break. So if you can imagine, these student athletes have been running and jumping and playing their sports since they were 3, 4, and 5 years old without a break, so that they could get to this point to get a college scholarship and play on the highest level. So one good thing about it is that they've had a break, a physical break from all of the wear and tear on their bodies. And so I will say again, we've been there for them, and I am just truly proud of their accomplishments. Learning is very challenging in terms of that learning experience, especially if you're not used to the virtual learning experience. And so our academic staff was phenomenal. They had daily meetings with our students, daily tutorials for those that needed it. I'm really grateful to Chancellor Akinleye and the leadership team. They were able to provide Wi-Fi's, Chromebooks for all of our students on campus who showed a need for it. And so they did whatever they could to make sure that our students on campus were able to still succeed. I'm also grateful to the UNC system, as you know, that they allowed the students to have the option of pass-fail for their courses this semester. So, you know, when I think about all of the things that people are pouring out and helping, I think about empathy and how everyone's empathy skills have kicked in, and so to help each other. And then lastly, I'm really grateful to our coaches. I've heard from student after student about how their coaches have really, really kept them engaged, have checked on them. I know the coaches are having weekly meetings with them, and so I have to praise the coaches for doing this, because it's challenging. And again, it's challenging for all. But because of all of this help and support that our students have had and what they've done in their own, I have to say we have maintained our 3.06 cumulative GPA. In fact, it went up a little bit. And that says a lot. And this is pre anyone choosing a pass-fail option. So we have to really applaud our student athletes. You know, we had 182 with a 3.0 or better this semester, 169 with a cumulative overall 3.0, 35 with a 4.0, with Frida Schnaschen, our women's tennis senior, receiving the Chancellor's Highest Award academically for maintaining a 4.0. Frida's from the Netherlands. She actually sustained a season-ending injury her sophomore or junior year, fought back, and just very, very proud of her. And then we have 10 teams out of the 15 that have posted a 3.0 GPA. So I'm so proud. You know, I joke with our academic staff and tell them all the time, hey, I want my 3.0. So I really, again, applaud Quadro Steele and his team for helping us achieve that goal. So, and also for accomplishments, you know, Kyle compiles a list every year of all of our athletic accomplishments, and I can't go through them all, and I'll just share a few, but it's just amazing what these students do on the field and in the classroom. As you remember, senior Darius Royster on the football team was the MEAC Defensive Player of the Year. And I will say this, I've never attended the College Football Foundation annual banquet. Just amazing to be amongst some of those college greats and coaches and players. And so for our student athlete to be up there amongst those individuals, that's so impressionable. So we're very thankful for the MEAC for you know, arranging that opportunity for our offensive and defensive players of the year to attend that. We also had 3 student athletes, our running back Isaiah Totten, senior receiver Deshaun Stevens, and our senior punter John Picaro, all voted to the COSIDA Academic All-District Football Team. We had also 2, our freshman quarterback, became the 6th quarterback in history to pass for more than 2,000 yards in one season. And so our football team under the leadership of Coach Oliver is moving, and we're going in a very positive direction. For volleyball, and y'all know that's my heart, but I'm not biased, but you know, but volleyball earned the number 2 seed in the Southern Division this year, which is the best seed since we've joined the MEAC. And then freshman redshirt Amara Williams was voted on the MEAC All-Rookie team. Cross country, we achieved the best ever finish for NCCU runner during the since we've been members of the MEAC, and that's Ashley Jean Ramon. And also in the championships, we placed 7th to earn. She also earned all conference honors. Track and field had a phenomenal season up until the point where we had to stop. We had 5 to combine for 7 medals during the MEAC Indoor Track and Field Championships. And I think that's the most in running events and throwing events. Of course, men's basketball won our 4th MEAC title, and I do believe, and I know this is on record, we would have won again. That's just my opinion. But our 4th season, senior forward Jabri Blunt was named MEAC Player of the Year. It's the 3rd Eagle and the 4th to win the MEAC award, and the 4th to be named Conference Player of the Year. And I should have done a trivia, and of course we all know who that was. The 4th person was Coach Moten during the CIAA membership times in 95, 96. For also too, Jordan Perkins, one of our young men who's been here his whole time since a freshman, is now the 2nd all-time in NCCU career assist and just the 3rd to reach 400 in a season. And then, of course, our coach, Coach Moten, won a gold medal with the USA Under 19 team at the FIBA World Cup in Greece. And I see Coach Stafford Odom, so I'm not leaving you out. We collected the most wins since 2006, 2007, making it the most wins in the Division I era. We've achieved the first winning MEAC record this year, 9-7, since joining the league in 2011, and earned the highest seed at number 5 since joining the MEAC. We also advanced to the semifinals for the first time in MEAC history. And I will say this again, we would have been playing in the championship game had not the season been cut short. Coach Stafford Odom. Senior Paulina Afriye also was voted the first team All MEAC and broke multiple records during her career here. And then junior guard Keisha White was named second team All MEAC. So, and again, there's so many of our awards. Women's tennis, again, I shared with you earlier, Frida graduated in May with a perfect 4.0 and achieved the Chancellor's highest award. Men's tennis recently, and this was just this week, was honored as a National ITA Community Service Award winner for all of Division I. So Coach Lawson, who is an alum, has done a phenomenal job with our men's tennis program. Baseball, again, the season was cut short, but senior outfielder Carter Williams became the first Eagle to hit 200 career hits, and then sophomore pitcher Ryan Miller led the MEAC in strikeouts at 36 before the season ended. And then softball, again, all of our seasons ended right around March 10th. We did have a significant win this year when we defeated Harvard University in the tournament in South Carolina. So again, that's a lot. And this, I think he sent me 4 pages worth of accomplishments, so I can't share them, but you will see those. And of course, going to our website, you can read about all of these amazing accomplishments of our student athletes. And so what I want to shift to now is to talk about how are we going to return back to campus. And so if you can imagine the planning that goes into doing this. And that, even though I said, you know, everyone's watching Netflix and hobbies and things, we still have had 4 to 5 WebEx meetings every single day. We have consulted with our UNC system peers, the NCAA. We have a phenomenal medical team led by Dr. Stafford and Sean Thomas. And so you can imagine all of the calls, even with the NCAA. Every week I have a call with the NCAA, I have a call with the MEAC ADs. And so we're all working together because no one has all the answers with this unknown crisis that we're in. And so we will continue to plan and consult with everyone, but with regards to coming back to campus. And so this week we had our facilities and our sports medicine team to come back to campus and start working and preparing. We're cleaning the facilities, sanitizing the facilities, locker rooms, and all of that to make sure that it is a clean and safe environment to return. Next week on June 15th, I think is Monday, our football coaches are welcome back to campus so that they can start planning in person. And of course, we are rearranging offices. Their new office space on the 3rd floor, because we don't have furniture in there right now, that will be used as an area where they can space their desk out. Offense will come in in the mornings, defense in the afternoon, and then they'll alternate. So there's a huge plan of how we're going to bring back people into the office space. We will actually start bringing back football student athletes right around July 13th. And we will start bringing them in small groups, so 30 to 40 student athletes. And they'll go through certain protocols of testing, screening, quarantining, before they're allowed to work out. And so in this period right now, from June 1 until June 3rd, July, they are only permitted to do voluntary workouts. And so that's why you've seen a lot of the larger schools welcome their student athletes, football, men's and women's basketball, back now because the legislation has permitted that. And so we plan to bring them back on July 13th. And again, small groups. They'll be housed. Not all the linemen will be housed together and all the quarterbacks, because of course, if there's an outbreak, then that takes you out. So we're mixing them up in by position in their living quarters or their living communities, as they're going to be called. We will also bring back, well, preseason will not officially begin for football until August 7th. And so then we'll bring back volleyball on August 3rd, and then all the remaining student athletes will come back on August 10th with all the general students on campus. And so again, it is a very planned process. School will not start officially until August 24th. And if you've seen that information, and the school will be ending right before Thanksgiving. And so we are not condensing our schedules, but we're planning accordingly to those schedules. Again, we're planning for visitors. We know that you want to come in here and donate money and buy season tickets. And so we are planning for that, but you will have to abide by all the university requirements and protocols, the city, protocols, as well as the state. And so, but we are planning for that. We will keep you updated and communicate what those requirements are as you move around and start coming back to campus. For fall sports, we have several different scenarios. I sit on the NCAA Division I Council, and we have the subcommittee that I'm on is the committee competition oversight. So the subcommittee that I'm on make decisions for all Division I sports except for football, men's and women's basketball. They have their own separate committees. And so next week we will be meeting as a full council, and we still, the MEAC, and I'm the representative, still has a vote on football, men's and women's basketball issues. And so we will be meeting next week to decide on whether the seasons, the championships will be normal championship time for football, volleyball, all fall sports, or will we make them earlier? Will we have them later? And so once that decision is made, now conferences will be able to say, okay, we're going to play a full season. We're going to play a bridge season. So that is why you have not seen too many conferences come out and just say, hey, we're going business as usual, because every sport, the season is determined by their championship date. So once the championship date is set, then the regular season is scheduled back from that. And so you'll see some movement, you'll see more information coming out after we vote next week. When we're planning for 4 different scenarios: 1 without fans, 1 with social distancing in the stadium, 1 with regular fan attendance, and 1 with, I think I'm missing 1. There's 4 different scenarios: without fans, social distancing, with fans, and no football. We're really not planning for that, but that is on with one of the scenarios. With that, we are creating a plan for social distancing in the stadium, through such as one-way patterns, for everything from concessions to the ticket booths to the restrooms, planning for sanitation stations. So we're working with the UNC system schools. Every Monday, Bulldog or George Smith has a meeting with the other UNC system facilities and game day planning staff to talk about those different types of things that we need to implement. Also, too, we're talking about stadium capacity. So if social distancing is still an ordinance at that time, and again, it's determined by the state, then your municipality, and then the university, we will only be able to have the stadium capacity will be about 28%, which is about 2,700 people. So that is one of the reasons why we had to stop selling the ESLs, because we needed to make sure there's 6 feet distance between side to side as well as front to back. And so we have sold out for the ESLs based on the social distancing, but midfield reserve is still available, which is on the visitor side. And then we will determine game day ticket sales based on availability, based on that 2,700. Now that does not include the track. And so I think we can get about another 300 to 400 on the track using the social distancing requirements. So my hope is that if we have to start with social distancing, but by the time the season progresses and we may move out of these phases, that we will have greater opportunities for more attendance. But we'll keep monitoring the best practices so that we can make sure that all of our fans, students, student athletes are safe. We will allow our band and cheer squad to participate and be at the games, but no visiting bands at this point will be allowed. So I know that's a disappointment for the A&T game, but again, we really want to keep everyone safe. So that's a little bit about how we're going to bring people back, how we're planning for the fall. And there are a lot of questions in terms of what tests are we going to use for the student athletes. We are planning to test every single student athlete. The university plan came out and talked about testing as well. So again, it's a moving target, and so it makes it very challenging. However, I have the utmost confidence in Dr. Stafford and Sean. Dr. Stafford also is a team physician for Carolina football. So whatever they're doing, we have the insight, and we may not have the resources to do everything, but trust me, he is keeping us abreast of what is the best practice to use to make sure that our student athletes and everyone, including game day people, personnel, the chain crew, the officials, and all of that are safe. I want to kind of shift right now and just talk about, I know some things that you're hearing and seeing. I can't speak a lot about them, but one is the MEAC conversation. And I know that you're inquiring about the MEAC, and obviously the landscape of the MEAC is changing. But we are continuing to have dialogue with other ADs, the chancellors, really to determine what's best for the university and what's best for the conference. We know that A&T and FAMU will be leaving after next year, but I will say Earl Hilton, the athletic director at A&T, and I have spoken, and we are planning to continue our competition with A&T in all of our sports. And so I know that was a big question, people wondering. So we want to keep that game, especially football, intact, not only because it brings the schools together, but it is a revenue generating sport. And so most definitely the game will be played from moving forward. Budget wise, COVID has definitely impacted the university. As I know that you read about athletic programs every day, saying what they're going to do to move through this challenge. And we're kind of looking at it as bridging through this crisis. And so we are going to have to take a step back, revisit what we're doing from a budget perspective. And it's going to impact our budget. And, and it's not a secret. We are looking at major adjustments, from operations, salaries, and all of that over the next 2 years. And hopefully we'll get out of this crisis. But, we've been through a transition, and that transition was challenging. And so I know that we will all figure out how to move forward and to back to this spot now where we are winning championships and everything. So again, it's very, very challenging times for us. I thank you for the support that you've shown throughout. We had the Student Emergency Fund. We've had a day of giving for the university. You all are still calling, asking about season tickets, asking about donations. And I really sincerely appreciate it, because this is a great time of need for the university, for our athletics program. And I know how prideful and supportive that you all are as Eagles. And I really hope sincerely that you continue to support our program. The things that from your support that we've been able to realize and do for our student athletes from a well-being experience is provide summer school scholarships. One of the reasons why our GPA is high and we're graduating student athletes more and more now is because they're able to attend summer school. And that's a direct result of your funding and the Eagle Club support. We've been able to provide more mental health services for our student athletes, more leadership opportunities for our student athletes, and in particular for our women student athletes with our Dawn organization. We've been able to provide some wonderful things for our young women. And so I hope that you continue to support, and we need your support now more than ever. And lastly, before I start taking questions from Jamal, I wanted to share with you what we've been doing for our student athletes, and just in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and crises now. I wrote a letter on a Friday to our young men. I have a son. I was very touched by as you have been, by everything that's going on. And so I wrote a letter to our young men. I wrote a letter to our young women, just to make sure that they know that we are here for them. You know, I went into mom mode, but all of them are my sons and daughters. And then what we did was I asked the Student Athlete Advisory Council, or SAC, which is our leadership group for the student athletes. I asked our coaches, I asked our administrators and staff, share with me your feelings. And that was going to drive our official statement from the department. And so what you saw last week that was released was the statement from the department. And then I have to give credit to Ariel Jermaine, who is a double alum, a double Eagle, and who is now our new assistant AD for marketing and fan engagement, came up with this graphic. And it's just so powerful when I first saw it, that it depicted what our coaches, our student athletes, and our staff, what Black Lives Matter means to them. And so it has been a trying time. If you can imagine the emotions of some of our students. We had a team meeting. Drew Johnson, who was a former men's basketball player who now works on campus, and Lucy Mason, who is our life skills coordinator, they put together a team meeting, and we had about 40 student athletes and coaches to participate, just to talk about what's going on and what we can do. And so now you've seen how Oklahoma and some of the schools are going to give a day off from athletic activities on November 3rd so that all their student athletes can vote. But we're going to do some more things leading up to that. And so I sent an email to the coaches the other night to say, hey, our community service project this year is going to be voter registration, voter education. And our student athlete, actually SAC committee, has already started working on a project to encourage people to vote. And so I just think it's a trying time, but this is the time that we all have to step up and support Black Lives Matter, support our HBCUs. You know, I applaud Coach Moten for speaking up and bringing back to light how important our HBCUs are, because that's what he did. And now you see, you know, a young lady at Liberty University yesterday, one of their star athletes, is now transferring. So it's so interesting to know, and we know how important our HBCUs are, but we can get those 5-star athletes. You know, we have law schools, we have medical schools, we have engineering schools and programs. And so I hope that that has instilled in a lot of young athletes and their parents about the significance of going and attending an HBCU. So I said a lot. I thought it was only going to be for about 15 minutes that I was going to talk. I didn't know I could talk this long. Yes, I did. But I am now poised to take the questions that you all sent in. And again, most of you, many of you know that you have access to me and can get to me, and I will answer and talk and share with you. And so at NCCU athletics, or athletics@nccu.edu, please be sure to send me your questions. I am available to answer those, but right now we're going to shift over to Jamal so that I can answer some of those questions that you all pose or send in.
Good deal. Thank you, Dr. Wicker McCree, for shedding light on the current status of the Department of Athletics. I wanted to take the opportunity to also, once again, thank all of our Eagle Club donors, thank all of our supporters. I see several of our sponsors on the call, Pastor Nate Davis with Now Church, Ms. Kimberly Williams with Right Time Realty. I see Mr. John Palmer, our Allstate corporate sponsor. So just thank you all so much for being a part and valuing what's taking place within the Department of Athletics. As I mentioned earlier at the onset of the meeting, a lot of you submitted some questions on Monday. And so we went through, and some of the questions that weren't necessarily addressed in Dr. Wicker McCree's address, we pulled those out and we're prepared to answer some of those. So Doc, the first question, as COVID hit at the onset of our spring seasons, what is the eligibility status of some of our student athletes that were not able to compete during the fall season?
So thank you. So the NCAA passed legislation that is permitting, first of all, so if you're a freshman, sophomore, and junior that had already started your season, so the only sport for for NCCU that had not started their outdoor season or the spring season with outdoor track. But for baseball, softball, tennis, and golf, they all now will have an additional year of eligibility. And then for those seniors who graduated, they have the option of coming back and participating another year without us having to go through a huge waiver process for a sixth year. So the NCAA moved swiftly on making sure that those student athletes were not penalized due to the pandemic.
Thank you. Next we have, so if a season ticket holder is not able to renew their season tickets due to COVID or the social distancing policy within the football stadium, what are their options?
So, because this is one of his areas of expertise in his charge, I'm going to allow you to answer some of those options. And again, I do appreciate everyone still calling in, trying to buy season tickets. It's just very, very encouraging to know that you understand truly what buying season tickets and being Eagle Club members mean to the athletic department. So, Jamal, if you could go through the options that our fans will have.
Sure. So there are a multitude of options that we've come up with that hopefully accommodate everyone's wishes. First and foremost, we ask that you would consider contributing that payment to the Department of Athletics. As Dr. Wicker McCree made mention, we're about to embark upon some trying times financially with the department. So we ask that you consider donating that to the department. Next, if you weren't able to renew, we will allow for refunds. I know that's against our policy, but given the circumstances, we will allow for refunds to take place. If you're not able to renew, we will allow for this payment to go towards your season tickets next season. As we look to open up and have everything back to normal for the 21 football season, the contribution could go towards next year. And then if you're not able to renew, we are able to relocate you to a reserve section. And I'm sure most of you guys who have participated in football games have seen the gray seat backs in the stadium. And so we'll provide a complimentary seat back in another reserve section of the stadium. So next, staying in the lines of football season, what will be the plans for tailgating?
So again, that's one of those areas that we're kind of tied to what is the governor's going to allow in terms of mass crowds, what is the mayor going to allow of Durham, and our mayor we've had a little bit more restrictions as the phases have come to fruition, and then also with the university. So it depends on that, and again, we're working with our UNC peers. Because I've always been a staunch, supporter of, well, if they're doing it, we got to figure out a way how to do that to accommodate our fans as well. And tailgating is such a huge part of our game day experience. And so we're going to do everything that we can, but that's going to be hard to monitor when you're telling people to stay 6 feet apart and they're trying to get that hot dog off the grill and the cook is right there. So we're just trying to manage through that, but we will definitely keep you updated. I know you're wondering, should you pay right now for your tailgating? So I would say, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will know for sure more what we're going to be able to do in the fall.
Good deal. So a lot of folks have inquired as to what homecoming will look like. How will this pandemic impact homecoming? Will there be a homecoming game? So forth.
So we will still play the homecoming game on the homecoming date, barring that the commissioner or the state says we can't. As far as homecoming, this does impact homecoming. It's one of our largest crowds. So I know that many of you may have received the survey that was sent out from Institutional Advancement, just to kind of get a gauge as to what activities would you attend. Would you attend virtual activities? And so right now, again, I'm hoping that that our medical field and technology finds some ways to manage this disease and even a cure. But hopefully by that time of the season, maybe the social distancing or the restrictions will allow more people to come.
deal. So, Doc, backing it out to the actual landscape of collegiate athletics, whether it's coaching salaries or building new facilities, and some of the other luxuries that some of our Division I programs enjoyed, do you have a sense of how COVID is going to impact the arms race from a landscape perspective?
Well, definitely, as I mentioned before, we will realign our budget. It's no different than what you see across the country, even in our UNC system. And so what I read on, there's this a blog or website, is a D1 ticker. And anything that's going on Division I, pretty much that hits the news, you can read. And so every day I see universities that are building, multi-million-dollar facilities are putting that on hold, just because, right now universities are going to have to take a step back. And so definitely COVID has impacted everyone, and especially on the arms race, because again, we've all kind of now had the time to reflect as to whether do we need this or do we need that. And so definitely it has put a pause for a lot of things in terms of, and especially facilities.
So the next question surrounds our student athletes. So what has impressed you the most with the NCCU student athletes as they went through such a challenging spring semester?
Really how determined they are. And we have some strong-willed young men and women, how resourceful they've been in terms of trying to figure out how to get things done. But just their perseverance. Like I said earlier, they are some of them have gone home to where they've had to now take care of the families, and instead of sending a check home, from their refund, they're actually there and having to work and having to take care of families. And so I'm just really impressed with the resilience. I'm also impressed with the parents, and I know that there's some parents on this meeting, and I just like to say thank you to them for their support, and for them to also know that when your son or daughter comes back to this campus, we're going to do everything that we can to protect them and make sure that they're safe. But I think how resilient they are during this crisis.
And the last question, Doc. So several of you have reached out to inquire about specific sports and the seasons, if they'll still have spring seasons, winter seasons, etc. So most of our focus and conversation is surrounding the fall sports, but have there been any decisions made surrounding winter and spring sports?
So, from an NCAA perspective, we're really just focusing on the fall sports. Conference-wise, we have made some decisions with regards to the basketball tournament, with regards to some of the spring sports championships, in terms of limiting the size of the field. And so some of our sports have gone from 8 being eligible for spring sports to only 4. And those things were put in place for cost-cutting measures because, again, our universities in the MEAC are, we're all considered limited resource institutions. So as a conference, the forecasting committee, which is a subcommittee of athletic directors, are looking at all kinds of ways of helping our member schools save money. And so for right now, however, we have not looked at, cutting a spring sports season or shortening the season. We're going as planned. Basketball will go as planned, but we're definitely looking at how can we make the championship experience less costly for the institutions. And so tennis will be only 2 days. Golf will be 2 days instead of 3 days. Basketball, of course, we're making some adjustments there. And so, but right now, for as far as I know, the spring sports season will not change, or winter sports.
So just to piggyback off of that, what would be the situation as it relates to scheduling and the travel of our student athletes, and are there restrictions based on the current budget situation? How will travel during these seasons work?
So we already have a restriction for all of our sports except for except for our men's and women's basketball and football, because we all know that they have to play those guaranteed games to generate revenue. But for the Olympic sports, we had a 6-hour radius, so they could not go further than 6 hours from Durham. Now we've cut that to 4 because of the crises to try to work through this time. But that is still not an issue because there's so many Division I programs within a 4-hour radius. What the NCAA also did was to allow some relief on scheduling requirements. And so football doesn't necessarily have to schedule more than 50% of their schedule with Division I. And so that is to make sure that if the school has to only play their minimum number in their Division II schools or Division III schools in their area, they can still provide playing opportunities for the student athletes at a lower cost. So there has been some adjustments from the NCAA's perspective, but again, we have not made any decisions from the conference level as to whether or not some of our sports will have a shorter season versus a regular season. But for us, we've made those adjustments on the requirement or the limitation of a 4-hour radius from Durham.
Good deal, good deal. Well, I tell you that concludes the questions that we had in addition to your statement. Dr. Wicker McCree, did you want to leave us with any final thoughts?
I just want to say again, thank you. I know it's a Friday evening, but we're staying home, so where else were you going to be? But no, I really appreciate, this has been an adventure for me. This is my 12th year in this role, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I know we've had a lot of ups and downs. We're going to go through some more, but I have to say thank you to all of you for really having faith in the university, having faith in this athletic programs, our coaches, and me. And we have a plan. We're going to work this plan, and we're going to win MEAC championships, and we're going to play in NCAA championships. And our student athletes, most importantly, are going to graduate, and they're going to be successful leaders, and the future leaders, and the future lawyers and doctors, people that are going to make decisions to better this country. And I firmly believe in that. And so I say thank you to you all. Again, please send in your questions. Please tune in to the next town hall meeting or a state of the, well, actually it'll be for our coaches. I'm encouraged to see what they're saying too. So, but thank you. Be blessed. Stay safe. Social distancing. And keep us all in prayer. And just thank you so much. And I know Pastor Nate has us all in prayer, as you always do. But please stay safe, and thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
You do the same.
Thank you, Ingrid.